It usually happens late at night. You're lying in bed when a specific project finally feels possible, and you sit up, completely wide awake. The immediate compulsion is to share it. You grab your phone, you text your friends, you explain the plan to anyone who will listen, and they respond exactly how you hoped. They clap, they encourage you, they tell you the idea is brilliant. You soak in that validation. You feel successful. You fall asleep riding the high of a goal that feels already reached. Then the sun comes up. You sit down at your desk to do the actual work, and that electric charge from the night before is completely gone. Your motivation didn't naturally fade over time. It was murdered by the very praise and support you sought out. To see how this cycle destroys ambition, look at the archetype of the chronic oversharer. Let's call him Simon. Simon had a habit of standing in the middle of his village and shouting his plans to the public before he ever lifted a finger. One week, he announced he was opening the biggest shop in town. The next, he was going to master pottery. Then he was going to build an entire house from scratch. Every time he spoke, the villagers smiled and offered kind words. Simon got an immediate rush of pride and pleasure without having to do a single minute of hard labor. But a few days later, his energy would vanish. The clay dried out, the tools sat untouched, and Simon would simply pivot to loudly announcing his next big project. Despite years of public support and celebrated ambitions, his hands stayed completely empty, leaving him trapped in a repeating loop of shame and total inaction. One evening, a quiet village elder approached Simon, holding 2 identical seeds. He wanted to show the young man exactly why his dreams kept dying. The elder took the first seed and buried it deep in the dark soil. He covered it up and said absolutely nothing to anyone about what he had just done. Then he took the second seed, placed it high up on an exposed rock, and called out to the villagers to come see the tree it was going to become. The crowd clapped and cheered. Left out in the open for everyone to see, that second seed became bird food. What the birds didn't take, the harsh sun baked, and it quickly cracked and dried out. Meanwhile, the first seed sat hidden in the dark. The elder watered it silently, and eventually a strong green shoot pushed its way through the dirt. Early public exposure is an inherently hostile environment. It actively destroys fragile beginnings before they can form roots. Announcing a goal spikes your motivation through praise. This applause tricks your brain into feeling the work is done. You hit a false finish line and your drive plummets. The biological energy needed to build burns up in talking, leaving your fuel at 0. When you feed your ego early with applause, your hands lose all biological motivation to do the heavy lifting required to succeed. Recognizing this trap, Simon changed his approach entirely. He chose one simple goal: to build a wooden chair, and he retreated to an environment of absolute silence. He instituted strict rules for himself. He made no public announcements, he dodged questions from neighbors, and he completely cut himself off from those early dopamine hits. The reality of isolated work was unglamorous. He made mistakes, he had to fix them in private, and he had to push through hours of quiet fatigue. But over weeks of hidden effort, the rough wood slowly took shape, transforming into a tangible, sturdy object. By completely removing the pressure of public expectation, Simon used his own quiet momentum to keep going. Sitting down on that wooden chair and quietly wiping the sawdust from its surface, he felt a different sensation. This pride was different. It came from the wood and the work, not the words. He didn't need a crowd to tell him he had succeeded. The chair held his weight. Your new ambitions are fragile. Treat them that way. Fiercely protect them from the harsh exposure of premature validation. Keep your ideas close to your chest and let them grow in the dark soil of quiet, consistent effort. The world does not need to know what you are building. It only needs to see what you have built.